Hello everyone and welcome back to another art-inspired Shop My Stash and Get Ready With Me. Today I'm going to the movies, I'm going to see Detective Pikachu, so some of my choices are more practical than they would be if I just filmed or wanted to stay in theme, so there is that. Today's video is a collaboration with my beautiful, wonderful friend Raw Paint, and I'm going to talk a bit more about her once the actual creating of the look starts. But for now, let's shop the stash. This is the painting that I'm taking inspiration from, and it's from Giovanni Battista Lampi, the Elder, and it is of a Russian noblewoman. Let's start with the base. Her face looks very flawless because, well, it's a painting, and most people that were subject of paintings wanted to look their best and often had the painter more or less do the painting version of Facetune. I'm going to start with the Urban Decay Optical Illusion Primer, which has a very thick consistency but is great at blurring pores, and you just need the tiniest amount ever. I'm going to use my favorite day foundation, and this is the Makeup Forever Water Blend, and I wear the shade R250. It's a very light coverage. I usually apply it with my hands. It's more like a veil of color than anything else, but that might be just the way I apply it. To continue, I am going to use my favorite concealer, and this is the Catrice Liquid Camouflage in Porcelain. As you can see, Instagram wasn't invented back then, so her under eyes are the same color as the rest of her face. For powder, I'm going to use my favorite summer powder. This is the Essence Mattifying Compact powder. This is really good for particularly tropical sweaty days. Let's talk about the power brows that she's sporting. I don't think I'll manage to get the exact same shape without looking absolutely crazy at the movies. So I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to try to make my brow shape a bit thicker with the Catrice Slim Matic Pencil in dark. I'm also going to thicken them with the Maybelline Brow Precise Fiber Filler Brow Gel, which I really enjoy, but I really don't like this weird paddle-like applicator. As I'm going out, I'm going to use my trusty Milani eyeshadow primer, and as you can see, this one has seen some better days. For the eyes, I'm going to use the Revolution Velvet Rose, and this is a dupe for the Anastasia Beverly Hills Soft Glam. The mattes here are great, but the shimmers are hit and miss. I particularly like these shimmers over here. The other two are kind of meh. For blush, I'm going to use the Pixie by Petra Cream Blush in Wild Rose. And for highlighter, I'm going to use the Benefit Twinkle Dandelion, which I really like because it's really subtle when you first apply it, but if you layer it, you can really get intense with it. For lipstick, I'm going with the Maybelline Dark Rosewood number 545, a really pretty rosy shade. Then for the eyes, I'm going to use my Rimmel Scandal Eyes in brown, just to add a bit of darkness at the outer edge like she has, or at least it seems like she does. For mascara, I'm going to use my current favorite, even though it's on its last legs. This is the Catrice Rock Couture Extreme Volume Mascara. This is really nice for volume and fluffy lashes, holds a curl really well. Not great for length though. And this has been the whole assortment of products that I will be using, so let's get down to business. Hello all, barefaced Mia here. Let's start the video. But before starting, you're gonna have to put up with my bare face for a bit while I put on SPF, VVV important, and tell you about the wonderful person that I am collabing with. Her name is Maitre, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but on YouTube she goes by the name of Raw Paint, and she is the loveliest, the most articulate. She is just amazing. Every video of hers, I always feel like I learned something new. She's just so authentic, so considerate. She is honestly goals. The way she talks about things, about beauty standards, about things that matter in the community, but lots of people don't talk about it because they're heavy, complex topics. It's just honestly so amazing and so thoughtful, and I recommend everybody go check out her channel, because if you're not, you are honestly missing out. Don't forget the neck and chest when applying SPF, and the back of the head too. So the painting that I'm gonna talk about is this one, and I'm not gonna talk about the actual painting or the painter, because frankly the story behind them isn't very interesting. Giovanni, renamed Johann, Lampi the Elder, had a pretty standard life for someone of his talent and skill, aka he moved through various courts, settled for one, got renowned for creating miniatures, portraits, what have you, had a bunch of kids, those kids became painters as well, so it's really nothing interesting or dramatic. And the noble woman depicted, I didn't really find a lot of information aside from the fact that she was a noble woman in the late 17th century. I feel like English people say it otherwise. But what I mean by 17th century is all of the years that go past 1, 7, and then the rest of the years, if I'm making sense. So up until the 1800s. I figured that a better topic would be for me to talk about Russia a bit in that time period, and life as a noble person in Russia, and why they all deserved the guillotine in the end. I'm going to start by using the Urban Decay Optical Illusion Primer, and mostly on my nose, a bit on my forehead, and a bit on my cheeks maybe. The 17th century for Russia was a really interesting period of time, because that's when Catherine the Great ruled. And she was honestly a pretty good ruler by 17th century standards. She worked hard to expand the empire, as you will. I mean, of course, she didn't give a shit about the common folk, but at least the nobility was well cared for. So the 17th century was a great time of expansion. At a certain point, she started like 2 wars with the Turkish people, with the Ottoman Empire, which I dislike on principle because they occupied Romania for so long and they oppressed my people for so fucking long. Like, I ain't mad she started wars with them, that's what I'm saying. At a certain point in this whole expansion, even Poland got fought over like a piece of meat by the Russians, led by Catherine, the Prussians, and then the Austrians, until eventually Poland was no more on the international political map. It was just a bunch of territories distributed through these 3 empires. I'm going to add a bit of concealer on my spots over here and on my under eyes. And that caused a lot of issues, because when you have 3 empires that are as hungry and as greedy as those sitting next to each other on a couch, you bet they're gonna fight over who gets the bigger seat. So as you can imagine, they were basically squabbling like children over what was once the territory of Poland. I'm going to go in with the foundation. This is the Makeup Forever Aqua Luminous in R250, and I'm just gonna put it on a beauty blender. I usually apply this with my hands, but I'm not sure how it's gonna interact with the primer. It might just ball up a bit, so I'm just gonna beauty blender my way into it. Ah, shit. Fell off the beauty blender. Ah, no. Don't wanna lose product. Fuck. And Catherine the Great tried to do a couple of things during her rule, which was, you know, the first one was expanding Russian territory. The second was to change law and legislation and change also how Russia was partitioned territory-wise. Moreover, she also tried to instill a sort of, I wouldn't call it a caste system, but a class system for sure. Even among the nobility, even the nobles were of different noble classes, and then you had, of course, the commoners, the serfs, which If you were a serf in those times, boy, what you wouldn't have given for a guillotine to kill your master. We like to joke now under capitalism that we should guillotine the rich, but honestly, we have it so much better than serfs back then did. That was basically slavery, and I'm gonna get into that in a second, but let's just thank God that it's not as bad as it was back then. Another thing that she did, she also tried to increase intellectualism into the empire, and there were lots of pamphlets, books, periodicals written, which in a way was her own undoing, because the smarter people got, the more they started discussing political matters and what is going on in the empire and what they disagree with, which led to the beginnings of Russian radicalism, I think it was called. Basically the school of thought that challenged autocracy and Russian monarchy and serfdom. I'm going to go with my Pixie by Petra blush on the apples of my cheeks. Her blush, I feel, is quite low and on the outer portion of this V shape over here, so I'm just gonna limit it in this particular area. So let's say you had the luck to be born as nobility in Russia. Well, if you were a small noble, you would spend your days in luxurious boredom and despair. There wasn't much you could do aside from interacting with your neighbors, annoying the serfs under you, languishing in your house. Just hashtag just nobility things. Add a bit more. If you were a bigger noble, so someone that was richer, you would of course have a more luxurious, more interesting lifestyle with parties and interacting with your neighbors and oppressing your serfs some more, making them wish for a guillotine. I'm going to go with the highlighter with Dandelion Twinkle. As usual, the rich were more or less exempt from certain laws. If you were a noble in the army, you would have precedence over a commoner to get promoted to officer positions. I'm going to start working on my brows, and this is the Catrice Slim-O-Matic. I really like it because it has a very fine tip. I'm going to try to make the tail of my brow thick like hers, longer. What the fuck? Why does this keep falling off? And maybe just soften this arch a bit, because hers are more rounded, mine are a bit pointier. And of course, as nobility would, you could be exempt from laws. You could just work whatever loophole you wanted in the law, and instead of getting thrown into jail, you would just get a fine. I'm going to start working on my eyes, and let's talk a bit about serfdom. I'm going to start with this very light neutral brown shade, maybe just a bit peachy, whatever. And I'm going to focus it in the socket and up until this very edge, so I'm not winging it out at all. I'm keeping my eye shape very rounded, just like hers. So what was serfdom? Serfdom is slavery. Yeah, pretty much. Basically what happened was that if you were a peasant, you were a serf, and you had a master. You were allowed to work the land of that person, and in exchange of that you forfeited all of your rights, and serfs were inherited much like slaves. You couldn't get free, you couldn't buy your way to freedom. The only way you would become free is if you served 25 years in the army. That was it. Going to deepen a bit with this color. And I'm going to take a very fluffy blending brush and diffuse everything together. Moreover, when you were a serf, you were at the mercy of your master. Your family could be moved, could be separated. could be killed at a moment's notice. Your daughters and wife could be raped. You could be raped, God knows. You could be sent to the army as a conscript. You could be punished for nothing. It was really a mess, and it is no wonder that eventually the Russian nobility and monarchy just fell. I'm going to use the Rimmel brown eye pencil in this outer corner over here and then in the outer corner over there and just smudge it out. I'm going to take a small brush and try to smudge it out. So yeah, being anything other than a noble in Russia and actually most of Europe in that period was a sad fucking existence. I'm going to add a bit of mascara because we're done with the eyes. I feel the blush isn't quite as prominent as I wanted it to be, so let's add a bit of lipstick to the cheeks. Because, you know, rouge was a thing back then, I think. Let's hope I don't fuck everything up. It's blended out nicely, yeah. Okay guys, this is the final look. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you the next time. Oh, and don't forget to watch my today's videos, please.